Hey, greetings and welcome to Code Quickie. And today we're going to be looking at sharing in Google Drive API. So I'm Code Quickie. Hey, thanks for watching today. Please, most importantly, if you guys need help with the instructional I'm giving out today, please in the comments, reach out. I always want to reach out to people. I want people to reach out to me so we could both help each other on our journey to get our Google Cloud certifications. As well, I'm gonna post as this instructional form right here. I'm going to post in the video description. So let's get to it. So when it comes to sharing a Google Drive API, we want us to understand that it takes two to share, right? And the sharing, what we want to do, we want to be able to share in Google Drive. And we need two emails to go about doing this. You could share by yourself, but the examples won't be as concrete and the learning will be more abstract. It takes two to share. Right. So what I have set up here is a second where is it? We change if I close it, right? I set up a second Gmail account just show that Code Quickie here as someone to share with, right? Because we always want to have share. We always want to be doing things by ourselves. So first things first, what we want to go ahead and do is we want to try to get ourselves a second Gmail, whatever it's your friend or whether you just go ahead and creating another Gmail account is super easy. Just providing the age and give yourself another alias, and it is super easy to go ahead and create, right? Or you can ask for a friend. Once you do that, we want to open this up in incognito mode, right? Because there's a thing called cookies, right? And this is probably for another video or for another concept, but you just can't have two Gmails in the same browser. You're just going to keep logging yourself out. So what we want to do is you want to use a different browser, or you want to use the incognito mode or the browser that you're working with. And if you're a bit advanced and you know how to separate the sessions, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, use a different browser when you're logging into the second Gmail account. Also, you want to open up your Gmail and you want to open up your Drive for this lab. So after we go ahead and do that, we want to go ahead, download the web app, right? We want to go ahead, download the web app. And once we do that, we want to go ahead and we want to run and open the web application in our browser, right? So I am going to run like so in the root of the project. And right, in Angular 11 with their new updates, it's amazing how fast things go. There's something called hot module replacements, which means the browser doesn't even reload. It actually updates in place, which is nice. It's still in its beta, but I tried it out and it's really good, but you don't want to use it when it comes to heavy core development because it kind of updates a bit too fast. It needs to wait for the full update to happen, and it catches bugs and it generates bugs, but it is on its way there. It is on its way there, and you just know by 2 or 3 updates, we won't have to ever see a browser reload again. Right? So let's just see. Let's just see how quickly this sets up. Once it's ready to go, it's like boom, here you go, and it's amazing fast how the build time for Angular. And this is just dev, and this is just dev, right? Imagine on prod mode, how quickly, that like the app snaps into this existence. Well, there's nothing on this app. It's not really a full web app. It's very, very. It's too simple, right? So, but if that speed right there, speed I haven't seen, right? And excited for where Angular is going. Always use Angular when it comes to these projects. All right, so back to the task on hand. We want to go ahead and do is we want to set up our credentials. So we want to head over to the share directives. I have to edit that, right? We want to head over to the share directive, and we want to be able to access our credentials for our environment, right? Like so. And after that, we want to head over to the credential manager, give ourselves an API key, and want to go ahead and restrict this key, right? Want to restrict this key to the Drive API. because there are powerful and expensive APIs in here. We don't want anyone getting their hands on them, right? So we head over to environment.drive. We want to go ahead, replace the API key like so, right? And after which we want to go ahead and make an OAuth client ID, web application, right? And then we want to add localhost. Want to add where we are hosting this site for a lab, right to the validated. Make sure it doesn't end with a slash. That's okay. And now we want to take our client ID. We don't need the secret. We don't need the secret for this. Or for many of our labs we're going to be working with in Google Drive, we won't need the secret. And now we have all the credentials we need to keep going in this lab. So next thing to do is log into the web application with my Gmail. And let me pause the video to do that. All right. Before I pause the video though, I want to be able to set up the SDK so it can give me login and give me access to all I need to do what I want to do today. So once you log in with your Gmail and your password, it's going to say the app isn't verified. You want to click advanced and you want to go to quick start, resume, and then you just want to go over the permissions in the UI and just to indicate that this is your app accessing your account, right? So me as Code Quickie, there is no way I have any access to your account through this. It's your app, right? You're running it, and now it's your app because you have access to the code, which you copied off of GitHub, right? Now you're just accessing your data. So after this, you want to go ahead and you want to click allow. Right. And now we want to refresh the app, right? And as well as keep our developer console open so we can get to work. Now we're all set up, ready to go. Right. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and create a permission. Right. So we want to take this object and we're going to head over to our environment. And now we're just going to paste out the share object. So in here, we want to paste the share object. We want to say create true. This is going to be the first part of our lab. And now in the area that says create a permission back in the share directive, what we're going to go ahead and do is we want to paste this code. Okay. And basically before we continue, it said you can notice here, erase this and type the second Gmail. So remember that second Gmail that I asked y'all all to type? Well, this is where it's going to go, and this is the email that we're going to be using for the rest of this lab. So let me go update like so. Right, so what I did in this video, I simply removed the second email, but we are ready to go. Right, and the first thing we see is we get an invitation. Right, so what I did in this code was that I have a share where I created a file, share gdoc, and then I took the ID of that file and added the reader permission to my target email address. And what we have in our app, right, we get our ID, right? Our permission ID looks very different from a file ID, and we see our reader. So this is the ID for the permission, not the ID for the email. And as we go ahead to our Gmail here, right, let me just get this out the way. This is actually very distracting, I see. Right, what we can see now is that Code Quickie sent us an email invitation to view, right? And we could see this in our drive. So I was speaking earlier about drives, about sharing, right? It takes two. So when you're sharing with someone, right, when you ask someone to view, when you start to share, the item will show up in my drive. It will show up in my drive, right? It will show up as share, okay? And there's a lot of duplicates here because the app is constantly refreshing. But when someone is sharing that item with you, right? This is shared with me. It's going to go up and shared with me. And this is actually your shared drive. You're wondering where's the shared drive, where's the actual name? And it's actually named shared with me, but technically it is your shared drive. You can see it here, right? So I gave it the reader role, right? And it's empty, right? Let's try to edit it, right? We want to be able to edit it. We want to be able to get in there and start typing. No, we can't. We have to request edit access because we only have the reader role, as you can see in our application, right? So if we're going to change that, want to change that to writer, we're going to see later in the application how we're going to go about doing this. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to be able to list all permissions, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this object, the share object, head over to our environment, and we're going to replace it like so, right? So now create is false, list is true, and now we are going to copy and paste this code for and list all permissions for a file. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy, paste like so, right? We're going to create another file, list permissions, give it the role of reader, and then we're going to see all the permissions on it. This is very important when it comes to your UI and what your users can do when you have many users on the applications. You want to see which files users are allowed to access to, or say for building a game even, right? You know, which users have the key, then they have access to the file. Which users don't have the key, they don't have access to this file. So let's head over to the app, right? We could see that we get some metadata back, and then we get the IDs. And you can see again, these IDs could represent not the email, right? Because they're different, but they represent the specific permission. And it's important for these permissions to have IDs, right? So that's how we go ahead and list, right? We're going to make a get request. We're going to make a get request to the file, to the files, to the typical endpoint for files / permissions, like so. Right, so now say we want to go ahead and change our permission. Now this requires a bit of setup, and this code is lengthy, but I do want to break it down with you. First things first, we're going to go into environment, and now what we're looking at, this part of the lab, we just go ahead and have the change to true, right? And let's see how we can go ahead and change a permission, right? It is very bulky, right? So first I want to just walk this through. Right, so when you're going through it by yourself, you won't be thrown off by the massiveness, right? So, right, we're going to start out with, for example, role, right? So we want to indicate that our role is reader, right? So this whoever we're sharing with is going to start out with role of reader, right? Our email address, right? We don't get to see, right? So first things we want to go ahead and do is we want to create a folder. Or should I explain this first? I was wondering if I should explain it. I'll just explain this first. So basically, when you're changing permissions, what we want is we need the parent to exist, and we need the parent to already be shared. So if we have a folder, right, we need that folder to be shared with someone, right? This can't happen before. We can't start moving files in there and then share the folder and expect all the permissions to propagate. It doesn't work like that. First, you want to share the folder with the intended person first, then move the files and subfolders in there, and then all the permissions will propagate, right? So if you want someone to be a reader of a folder, right, first you have to share that folder with that person, make them a reader, not do this after. If you do it after, those permissions will propagate. Great, and we're going to see how we're going to properly do this with Angular. So first you want to do, you want to go ahead and create a folder, right? This is how we go ahead and create a folder. Let me try to zoom in a bit, right? We go ahead and create a folder like so. Then we set up, when we set up those, we subscribe. Want to go ahead and subscribe to this. Yeah, now I'm just thinking this myself. I should have copied and pasted, but I'm ready to go through this with you. Hopefully I don't picture this, but this ends up well, right? And now we want to be able to see our result. Okay, so we went, right? So we went and created a folder. So after, what we want to do, we want to go ahead and share the folder with another user, right? This is, and you start to see sharing the folder and creating the permission are the same thing when you're dealing with the Google Drive API. So now we go ahead and share the folder with another user, and you want to subscribe. Right, so this is how we go about sharing the folder with another user, right? We just take the ID and we're actually adding a permission, right? So once again, what we want to do is you want to look for the role. Right, all right. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Actually, what we want to do is you want to create the file in the target folder, like I said. So yeah, basically, like I said, right, a little bit butchered, but basically, like you said, right, we want to have everything set up first before we want the properties, the permissions to be inherited, right? So now we're going to create the file in the target folder, right? This is how we actually create a file in a folder, right? Without using the SDK. This is actually the REST API. If we want to go ahead and do this, right, we want to include this logic in the body, right? This comes as an array because in Google Drive, I believe a file can actually have several different parents. So you can actually find the same file in several different folders. It gets very interesting, right? So they took the Linux logic a step further. Right. So now basically the role that we gave it the role of reader. So we shared with a user the role of reader. So now every single file, every single folder that's in this folder, right, the shared user is going to have a role of reader. And so we want to go ahead and do. We want to be able to look for the role, right? Because there's probably several roles on this in this folder right now. Getting a bit complex, but that's okay. Right? And then we want to subscribe. We want to see all the roles this file has, right? And then, right, there's only, so now what we want to do, we see that there are several permissions, right? We want to find our reader, right? That second email, right? So we'll go ahead and do is find whoever has the reader role, and then we want to go ahead and change that role. You want to go ahead and change that role. Right, and yeah, a lot of things doesn't and not to say result equals any, because in TypeScript, they're doing a lot of strict type checking. This is only good because we don't want casting to occur, and you don't know what types you're dealing with, and you don't know how application's working. And one thing, just a side note, I really branch off a lot. With JavaScript, right? We'd say when TypeScript was introduced, they'd say JavaScript is faster. But you know what? JavaScript is actually a lot slower to work with. I feel like the control flow is not there. And TypeScript, even though it doesn't introduce that control flow that Python has, right? That Java, I think, no, I'm mistaken, that Ruby has, right? It does, there is a sense of control flow in terms of types, where if you really put in the wrong type and you just don't know what's going on, right? And you realize, and then like hours later, you realize this is an object, not an array. Right? TypeScript actually saves you from that trouble, and its control flow, I realized that even though it's long, there is more when I'm typing out TypeScript. I'm actually moving faster than I would be in JavaScript. I feel like JavaScript, once you have to make a change, you have to rewrite the whole app. I feel like TypeScript prevents this type of thing happening, right? Because you kind of um TypeScript prevents this kind of thing happening, and I can't explain why. It just happens to be that when I'm using TypeScript over JavaScript, I am moving faster, and I have to worry about size because TypeScript gets compiled down to JavaScript, and you have some great transpiles out there. I said compile, transpile. You have some great transpiles out there. You could definitely trust Angular, Google team, who's working on Angular to transpile it properly for you as this app is working well. Right? So now we see as we properly set this up, we see the last thing, right? We see our, let me see where the permission is, right? But we had the role of reader, and I think I just have to indicate that, right? Result permissions, right? And then console log results. Right, so we can see here before that we had the role of reader before, and right, we see in our code that we're just looking for that reader role, that we could see it updated, right? So in order to update a permission, what we want to go ahead and do is we want to use a patch request, right? Because we have an ID. If we want to add a new permission, right, that is going to be a post. Yeah, it was a post, I believe, right? And this is so because these permissions, they're just not on one file. They have their own separate logic. They're like their own separate entity because each has their own ID. Okay, so that's just the logic behind permissions. Don't think of them as a list. Just think of them as their own separate entity, right? That they're just related. That just has the same file. All right. Right. So there is that. Right. So that's the bulk. So that's a little bulky explanation. I know I butchered things, but once again, please reach out in the comments. Right. Help me, help you. We both get this GCP cert. So now we're going to go ahead and go ahead and revoke permissions. Right. So what we're going to do, take this object, head into our environment file, and now revoke is true. Right, and we're going to copy and paste this code. I'll try to go through it a bit. If anything I want to see here, right? And we say we have a revoked folder, right? So we're going to give it the role of reader, and then what we're going to do, we're going to send a delete request and take that with the permission, the ID permission, right? So this is important. So now you can see why we need IDs, right, to get that specific ID, because it's too much to provide the email, to provide the role, and all that good stuff. So we got to ID this out, right? Google was smart when they did this, right? And as you can see here, head over to my drive, and let's see if I have revoked folder. My revoked folder, my shared folder, you can see it's shared with someone else. But my revoked folder, I have taken it away. All right, right. I've taken it away, and all there is my shared folders. Right, good. All right, it's going to be a lot of them. Right, this is good for the last part of the example. All right, so after this, we want to do, most importantly, I think what most of you guys want to do here is you want to transfer file ownership, right? So this definitely has some caveats. So when you're transferring file ownership, you have to watch out for inherited, because in a shared drive, this actually might be harder to do. This might be impossible to do from the shared drive, right? It will make sense because you're not the owner of the file. This is coming up in your shared drive, right? So, but if it's in your My Drive, right, you're the owner of the file. And that's why I just want to repeat again. I don't think I made that clear enough. When a file is in the shared drive, you're not the owner. When a file is in My Drive, you are the owner. So in order for file ownership to be transferred, you need to be the owner of the file. The file needs to be in My Drive, not in the shared drive. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this last part of the demo. All right. Want to override the share object. All right, and now we want to go ahead and transfer. All right, so we have here, we make a folder, transfer ownership. Okay. Now what we need to do, right? We give her the role of owner, right? That's the role when we want to transfer that file ownership to the email address, and then we want to send over query params of transfer ownership equals true, right? And now we want to be able to confirm this. We want to see that the former owner is now the writer. So we what to do? We're going to go to the application, have a little error. I got to go find out where it is. Yeah, let me try to delete one. Let me try to see it's deleted one. It's usually, yep. All right, there is my error. Actually, I need to close out this if statement. The thing will copy and paste. It's okay. Copy and paste. You just want to make sure you copy it. Like I zoomed in, but when you're at home, you're doing this, you should be able to see all the code. I think this is bad on my terms, but I think what it is that I think if I try to break it down too much, you kind of will just miss like how to do it. I don't want to do too much explaining. I just want you guys to know how to do it. And then when you guys look at it later, you guys will be able to see the nicks and scenes, because this is officially how to transfer file ownership. But for that to happen, you need a folder, right? You need a file in the first place, and you kind of need to see, I kind of need you to see results, right? So instead of trying to break it down for you, I try to give you just how to do it and then why it works. You could break it down for yourselves later, right? So I'm going to take a look at the permissions now, right? We could see that code quickie, right? Now he's a writer. And now the person I gave it to, their display name's delivery guy for some reason, right? Now they are the owner, right? So whenever you transfer a file, when you ever transfer a folder, a file to someone else as ownership, what happens, it actually leaves your drive and it goes into your shared drive, right? And I think I harped on this earlier. When you receive ownership of a file, it comes out of your shared drive and it goes into your My Drive, right? Once again, indicating that ownership of a file ends up in not My Drive. Is someone is sharing their own file with you. It will go in your shared drive, right? So one last thing. So that is my lab on sharing files and folders in Google Drive. And one last thing I want to just go over is that when you're doing a lot of sharing, Code Quickie, as enthusiastic as it is, you don't want him popping up in your Gmail all the time, because every time sharing takes place, you're going to get a Gmail about this. I'm looking for a way to silence this. Try to take a quick look in the docs if you could actually get this silenced. Send notification email, right? Let's try to silence this. Yeah, because I was going to show you I was going to give you a tutorial about how to move things out of how to create a filter. Let me try to see how quick this goes. All right, so we're going to first try to create a filter. So when you get more invites, right, we could stop this, right? We don't have to, right? So we want to go to settings, scale settings, accounts and import, right? Filters and block addresses, create a new filter, right? The second email we want to go ahead and do, let's just say A, right? You want to apply the label or skip the inbox, send it to spam, probably send it to spam, mark as read, it should allow you to censor spam. This is amazing, but this is how you do it. And then also apply the filter, right? So that's how you filter it all out. Let me see if I could go ahead and quit it with the notification emails, right? And this is a parameter, right? So let's false, right? Because they don't need to know about it. They don't need to know about it like that, right? Just have it pop up in their drive, and the rest should be good to go. All right, so we're gonna take a look. What I want to do is I actually want to empty out my inbox. Just want to throw everything in the trash. Looks like it's not working, but let us try this again. Send notification email. False, right? Oh no, this is a parameter, so only accept strings. Right, send that as false. Let's head over. Good. All right, let's see if we got an email. All right, so no email. And yeah, and then I really can't see, if this was just recent, right? Let me actually test this out. And then, yeah, actually, you know what? It's kind of interesting, right? Because, yeah, it went through. I know it went through. That's okay, right? So this actually goes through right now, but it's interesting because this actually takes a while, right? So now we got no notification email, okay? But this actually takes a while for it to show, which is kind of unfortunate, right? If we actually, wait, we see these from hours ago, from at least an hour ago, that file transfer ownership actually takes a while to actually appear in the UI, but it happens instantaneously in the API. API got a little run going there. Look. Right, so we created that folder, right, but this does not appear until way later, and this is like still hanging out in my shared drive, unfortunately. So, right, so this happens 12:37 where I created it, but for this to show up right away in as owner in another person's drive, it doesn't happen, right? So it's immediately taken out of my drive, which is cool, but the owner doesn't get to see it. As you can see, it's just nowhere to be found, right? So that's just another caveat to note, right? So if you want to avoid emails, right, send notification email should be false, as well as, when you file ownership transfer, that's going to take a while. So you might as well just make the person reader and have that kinked out, and find a different way to kink it out. Also send out a bug report to Google. Hopefully they as feedback. So hopefully they look into it. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I know I butchered this part of the video, but hopefully I was very insightful. Definitely when you're doing this lab, right, as it's going to be posted in the link description, please reach out to me. I always like to help you, and I hope you guys help me as we both head in this journey together for Google Cloud certification. Thank you for watching.